Hello and welcome to the Sussman Original Show. I'm your host, Joshua Sussman, and today we're going to be talking with the host of the popular YouTube Futurist channel, Disrupt. There you can find a whole bunch of really high quality videos broaching a wide variety of topics on all things relating to VR, so feel free to check them out at Disrupt on YouTube. But in today's podcast, we end up talking a bit about choosing a virtual reality headset, going viral in today's world, and what it's like to spend a week straight in virtual reality. You might have seen his massively viral video, I Spent a Week in VR and Here's What Happened. If you're not one of the 17 million people who saw it, I would highly recommend checking it out as it is awesome. But without further ado, on to the talk. Well, hey Jack, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. And as I was saying a little bit before, but I would have played a little bit of a description or whatnot of what your channel is all about. But how would you describe it in your own words?
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's say first and foremost, we're sort of a futurist studio. So
Hmm.
we like creating content that sort of relates to the relationship between technology and the human race. I like to
Yeah,
think of it. Um, and we're also just sort of like a futurist community, so a gathering of like-minded people that like to ponder the mind and ponder technology.
yeah, totally. Yeah, that's rad. Yeah, that's super rad. Yeah. So how did you get involved doing it? How did you start it? Like, what prompted you to, yeah, get it
Yeah,
going?
absolutely. So, well, I started off in the game Minecraft a
I
while
am
ago.
familiar with it.
Yeah, man, great game, great game.
So
This has a
good.
special place in my heart.
Yeah. Oh,
So
totally.
yeah, I started using it to kind of tell stories in it. I used to do these things called machinimas, which
Mm-hmm.
is like
Rest in
yeah,
peace.
like yeah, rip. But so sort of like in-game films, and using really Minecraft as a way to practice storytelling without having to have a crew or camera gear. So it was almost like a way to create like little Hollywood films without a budget.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, so I did that in like 2013 for a couple years, and then took just kind of a long break to kind of you know experience life a little more as not a creator.
Yeah.
Wasn't putting out anything for a good 2 or 3 years, and then after a couple years, I came across the sort of virtual reality technology as a whole, and it immediately just like grabbed my attention. It's like one of those moments where like the hair stood up on the back of the neck. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
this is immediately, this technology is amazing. Um, so from there, it just started like making videos about virtual reality itself and kind of taking that topic and having like a very centered focus. Like, okay,
Mm.
virtual reality is what I want to focus on because I'm passionate about it. And so all of the videos have just been related to that so far.
Yeah, that's cool. Could you see yourself doing things in or covering, I guess, a broader spectrum of technology as well, or is VR more the area you want to kind of hyper focus on for at least right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the goal for at least the next couple months on my end is to like really kind of hyper focus on one individual topic, like have a goal and aim for that. And then
Mm.
once I sort of feel more comfortable, I think branching out to like try to get a wider reach is definitely the goal.
Yeah, that's rad. So have you always been like super interested in technology, or like as a kid,
Yeah,
or?
yeah, for sure. I sort of grew up on like miniclip.com and like a bunch of
Yeah,
online
the
games.
classics,
Yeah,
Newgrounds.
RuneScape. Yeah, yeah. So that was like really where my interest in technology started. Um, and then growing up, like I got my first laptop and started editing videos and stuff. So technology, I think, has always kind of been like a friend.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like it's been such a interesting time, especially to grow up in nowadays and in the past 20 years or so, as we've seen rapid developments of technology and the
Yeah,
fact that we're able to connect with people all across the world through that.
yeah. I feel like we're in one of the most exciting times to be alive in terms of technological advancements. Like just in
Yeah.
the past like 50 years, we've been to the moon, and now we have all of humanity in our
Yeah.
pockets. So pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
that's something I actually talk about a lot is that, how far it's basically took all of humanity to get to the point to build a plane, and then from there it took what, about 60 years from the first plane to getting to the moon. Like,
Yeah, it's almost like this. I don't want to go too off the
yeah,
rails here on
no,
the
no, no,
uh,
totally fed.
uh,
Yeah, I insist.
yeah, it's almost like this constantly like accelerating thing, like innovation. Like if you take the first, however many thousands of years we've been as a human, right?
Yeah.
A conscious human. Like, and now we're seeing, like you mentioned, within the past 100 years, it seems like we're getting faster and faster at
Yeah.
technological innovation. And I wonder, like, where is it going? Like, where are we advancing to? But, maybe we'll
Yeah,
figure
I
that
think
out.
it's super exciting time. It's,
Yeah.
it's crazy. And then I heard someone say the other day that really put kind of that into perspective for me was that it was that modern science, as it is now, has really only existed for about the past 500 years or so. If you go back
Mm,
to like Newton or Copernicus, and then it's really just been building from there, like each generation or whatnot. But 500 years really isn't that much time. And
yeah.
the fact that we're going to live in basically a fifth of that time, like 100 years, the next 100 years portion of that is crazy.
Can't imagine what life was like before we knew a little bit about our crazy world.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so it's insane. But yeah, and so you mentioned that some of the stuff that you played early, but I'm always curious, what were some of the first games that you kind of grew up on or
Yeah, man. It was So I remember a very early memory is my dad playing GoldenEye 64, like through that
classic?
yeah, and I was just like wide-eyed, like whoa, this game is so cool. So that was definitely one of the first ones, and then Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. That
Yep,
was a
nice.
uh,
Dude, it's so good. I mean, I personally I missed GoldenEye entirely, but jumped on around Nightfire and then missed the N64, but had a Super Nintendo around that time. So it's that console has a special place in my heart. So
yeah,
good.
nostalgia.
Yeah, and then I feel like one of the things that I always find interesting, especially with creators nowadays, who especially have grown up in the time of YouTube, has been just seeing who like or how big of an impact YouTube has. So like, who are some of your creative influences, if you have any, or whatnot? Would
Yeah,
you say?
absolutely. Um, I'd say current day, it's definitely Corridor Digital.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the way they sort of have set up their channel from being just two independent creators to actually like building a fully functioning studio, I think is super inspiring, and
Hmm.
documenting it all. Casey Neistat, of course,
Yeah.
uh, the amazing filmmaker. um, yeah, another funny thing which I hadn't really considered up until a couple months ago, but Adult Swim, their online presence, I
Hmm.
think over the past year or so, has been really interesting.
Yeah.
um, it's sort of like the only traditional network I've seen that has successfully sort of translated their content into digital medium. Um, so I really like what they're doing and draw huge
Yeah.
inspiration from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's yeah, especially fascinating nowadays as we continue to go forward in this increasingly more digital society to see like
Yeah.
what brands are able to make the jump that are kind of established because
Mm-hmm.
there was a biggest like I don't know wagon company for a while, but we don't really hear about them now. Those aren't that's not the normal car brands, and so it's kind of
Yeah.
it's always fascinating to see what changes and what.
Yeah. It's like a gladiator ring almost. Like they
Yeah,
got the established top dogs, and then with this new medium, it's like there's it's definitely hit or miss. Some can't translate, but others can.
yeah, or adapt a little too slow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've noticed though, yeah. And so yeah, you're saying the main focus right now is VR with your channel, but so what do you have? What consoles do you have, or like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So in terms
slash
of
sets.
consoles, the PS4, I picked one up for Red Dead Redemption mainly.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah, I had to jump in that. But otherwise, I do most of the gaming on like PC. Um, so a couple like VR headsets and
Yeah. What
yeah.
headsets are you using these days?
So use the Oculus Rift mainly at home. Um, the Vive as well. And then I also recently switched to the Windows Mixed Reality headset, which
Hmm.
is kind of like a cheaper in terms of price point headset, which I've actually really been enjoying. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool because it's and of course there's the one I believe it was the Vive Focus with the eyes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Classic.
Love it.
So good. But
Yeah.
yeah, is there any that you would recommend right now to people interested? Like myself, I don't have one yet, but I'm like eagerly awaiting. I'm about to build a new computer. And so that is one of my top purchases afterwards because
Yeah,
I find that technology to be so exciting.
yeah, it's a blast. I mean, I think the Oculus Rift is pretty good. It's relatively cheap
Hmm.
um, compared to like the Vive. Um, so I always recommend the Oculus Go for like a starter headset. The Vive is also really good. I mean, it has the best tracking in the industry right now, which means like you can walk around your room much.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, it's tough. It's such a new industry. There's so many headsets coming out and so many like companies
Oh
competing.
man, yes. Yes.
Yeah, like I feel like what the smartphone industry was in like 2006 is what VR is today.
Yeah, yeah, and it's pretty exciting though to see some of the huge leaps that are being made with like inside out tracking, and so no longer needing the towers and whatnot. It's
Yeah,
like exciting.
yeah, for sure.
What would you say you use the most? Are you attached to your PC or do you run one with all internals or
Yeah, so it's funny if I'm at my PC, like at my desk, I prefer the Oculus Rift.
Mhm.
Um, it's easier, it's just more comfortable to set up. But if I'm playing like a room scale game, then the Vive it can't be beat. Like
Hmm.
it's the tracking just feels much better. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
there's
cool.
trade offs for both.
Yeah, yeah. And then I saw your video, your 360 video as well. Of course, I had to do it with my phone going through.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm always super curious about new styles of filmmaking as well. I mean, I think just in general with film, there's so much that is yet to be explored. And
Mm.
so I don't know. I'm curious to get your thoughts on what like 360 video or whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's fun. That's kind of where my passion lies. I think like telling stories in that format. I
Hmm.
think mix of like video games and film. I think those two things are like mixing
Hmm.
perfectly with virtual reality because you find when one puts on the headset and enters a VR experience or a film, they're at times watching the media
Yeah.
similar to a movie theater, but they're also inside the media similar to a video game. So trying to figure out how to actually tell a story in that format where
Hmm.
all of a sudden we can't control the camera, like there's no window that the director has
Yeah.
control. It's almost like trying to then coordinate the world. So
Hmm.
it's like this really interesting, like strange new medium that I don't think we've really explored before as creators or as filmmakers. So trying to
Yeah.
discover that is just a blast.
Yeah, because I mean, you got to imagine, especially when the viewer has the choice of looking around. Like when you want to show them something, it's, I guess, one of the challenges would be subtly, trying to get them to look in one direction when something's going
Yeah,
on without
yeah,
beating them over
exactly.
the head with it. But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, That's fascinating. Are there any challenges you run into or notice just in general with VR, or and trying to be
Yeah,
a creator in that space?
yeah, for sure. I mean, in terms of like actually creating the experiences, because VR is like rendering in 360 degrees.
Hmm.
Um, and this more relates to like an actual like VR game rather than a 360 video,
Yeah.
because it's like a real time experience. It's tough to like optimize the experience for current hardware because
Yeah.
like in your mind, you have the vision of like whatever you want to create, whether it be a video or something. Um, but it it's almost an exercise in like having an original vision and then pushing it back and making it optimized for like
Hmm.
devices, very similar to what game developers go through. So
Yeah.
that's a big challenge that.
Are there any that you feel like really knock it out of the park, kind of in that respect? Because I feel like limitations can also sometimes help to create a better project. I mean, you see that occasionally with, I mean, the classic example being like Jaws and the shark that was
Yeah,
malfunctioning, but and so they had to do less shots or whatnot of it, which
yeah,
made it much more intense. But
yeah, absolutely. There's a studio in God, I'm drawing a blank, but it was this experience where you're in space, and like the idea of taking this environment that's so foreign to us, like
mm-hmm.
we've never been to space, but taking that environment and putting it into a headset and working within those limitations of like one, the environmental limitations, like we don't really know what space looks like,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the sort of the hardware limitations, I
yeah,
think really suit space experiences really well because it's essentially a black box with effects, whether it be stars and planets. But I'm drawing a blank on the experience name, but it was one of the greatest sort of VR films
huh.
I've been in. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
huh. That's cool. What? Yeah, and speaking of it, so what are some of your just favorite, I guess, games slash experiences that you find are rather unique?
Yeah, for sure. I think my favorite, one of my go-to on the weekends is Skyrim VR.
Hmm.
Which have you ever played Skyrim?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Skyrim is one of
Yeah,
my favorite games of all time. So I'm a big fan. But
yeah, man. It's insane because like how like familiar you become with the world
yeah,
when you're like with a controller, even keyboard and mouse. But having that familiarity and then jumping into it and
yeah,
actually like standing in Whiterun and like seeing the sense of scale is mind blowing. So that one's probably like still to this day one of my favorite VR experiences.
yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. I think there's something to it, especially when it's like a game that you know very well. I mean, I probably bought that game like 4 different times across different consoles, and but yeah, yeah.
Get the
It's
toaster version?
the what?
Did you get the toaster Skyrim?
Oh, no, not yet. I need it. No, it's so good. Do have it on the
No,
Switch though, most recently, but
nice.
it's so good. Yeah, and speaking of the Switch, what are your thoughts on the Labo announcement with Labo VR?
Hey, it's interesting. I have faith. I mean, it's Nintendo, so I don't think they would put out a product that wouldn't be good. Um, so I'm interested to see it. Yeah, I still have to pick up a Switch. I've never gotten on the Switch brand.
It's cool. It's cool. Just side note, I mean the Switch has been probably I play mostly on PC,
Yeah.
95% of everything now.
Oh,
But
really?
that yeah, yeah. I mean, I have my Xbox, for example, under my desk, but I don't really have much risk, especially now that like more and more things are coming to the PC or Xbox as that cross-platform play. I don't know,
Right.
but the Switch it offers a different experience and on the go and whatnot, so it's
Yeah.
nice. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I think it's pretty cool to see that. At least it seems like it's gonna get a whole new generation of people involved with it, like a lot of the younger folk, and so I don't know.
Yeah,
I always think more barrier or more points of entry are rad.
exactly. Especially like when, you know, so many people already have a Switch. So having just an add-on that's like, oh, okay, you can get the experience of VR with something
Yeah,
you already have. I think that's rad.
yeah. Do you have PlayStation VR?
I don't. I have the PS4 Slim, so it can't handle that. But I've
Oh,
heard it's
nice. Yeah,
pretty good.
yeah, yeah. Because I think that's like another one where it's like, okay, just more points of entry, and so it's always cool to bring more people in.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But how's the like in terms of Oculus versus Vive content wise, is there a large gap these days? Because I know when it first started out, it seemed like every other title was being announced as an exclusive, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. They still do the exclusive thing, like you can only get certain games on the Oculus Store,
Hmm.
but it's interesting. So the Vive can't play Oculus games unless you download something called Revive,
Mm-hmm.
which it's not a hack, but it just like makes Oculus games compatible.
Yeah,
Whereas
is it more of an unofficial like app, or is it kind of akin to almost jailbreaking an iPhone back in the day, or is it
yeah,
available on the App Store or whatnot?
yeah, so it would be like jailbreaking, except way
Hmm.
easier, thankfully.
Yeah.
Jailbreaking is always so hard. Um, but yeah, it's so whereas like you can use the Oculus to play any Vive game. So it's interesting
Okay.
seeing like the split that Oculus tried to go. It's very like an Apple-esque route, I
Hmm.
think. Um, but you know, I mean, they're also injecting so much money to studios. So I think early on in the industry, it's kind of a necessary evil. I think.
Yeah, yeah,
At least,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, in your video, VR is dead. Long live VR, which is awesome. Side note again, but I just watched Return of the King extended edition, and so dude, the crown, so good.
Such a good scene. I love it.
Yeah, but yeah, I never really realized how much VR technology has ebbed and flowed over the years. I thought it was pretty well done as a history or whatnot, but like,
Thanks.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
I was surprised. It's like, yeah, it's interesting. My hope is that this sort of next wave of VR is the one that sort of makes it go mainstream. But
hmm,
yeah, I'm trying to think of like another technology that sort of had that many iterations. I think PCs or at least computers definitely did, but like yeah, it's so interesting to kind of see like the
yeah,
the headsets from the 50s and stuff, 60s.
yeah, and I feel like even phones, handhelds have kind of had a similar thing to some degree. And I mean, I'm a big believer in the fact that our phones nowadays are still in the middle, and they're gonna just keep evolving to something,
Yeah.
whether that's VR or I don't know. But do you notice any trends like in the VR industry that it's headed towards, or like exciting technologies that are still being worked on?
Yeah, absolutely. So the do you ever watch Freddie Wong way
Yeah,
back?
I used to be a big
Yeah.
fan. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I
So
guess I
his
still am, but
yeah, yeah, great guys. So his the co-founder Brandon
hmm.
Latch, blonde guy, he started a VR studio,
Okay.
uh, and they're working on this thing called Boneworks, which is essentially like sort of more accurately um, simulated bodies in VR. So when
Hmm.
you put on the headset, you can look around and see your body and the way your arms move.
Hmm.
It is almost like a step above the current way that developers do skeletal meshes in game. So it's like this very,
Hmm.
at least from the videos, it's supposed to be like this very sort of realistic, natural way to experience presence and embody character in VR.
Interesting. So does it track your body like as it exists in reality through external cameras or
So
what?
it only uses the headset and the two controllers, but
Okay.
the way they haven't released too much information about it, but the way I understand it is they're like doing really complex sort of um, want to say simulations of just like seeing where like the
Hmm.
bone joints would be, like when you move this way, or the
Yeah.
relationship between the controllers and the head. So it supposedly from the video, it just is supposed to feel like really natural.
Hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about some of like the other controllers and whatnot that have been out these days, and anything? I guess what are your favorite? What's your favorite?
Yeah. So the Vive controller is sort of like the big one. I'm not
Yeah.
a huge fan of that. Um, I mean, it works. It's just kind of like uncomfortable and clunky. I really
Mm-hmm.
actually like the Oculus Touch controllers. Just
Mm-hmm.
fit in your hand super well. But Valve is also working on Knuckles controllers, which they sort of um, they sort of have a strap on the back so you can release your hands and like grab objects more naturally.
Okay. I haven't heard of those, but I was gonna ask you if you'd seen the Smarter Everyday video on some of the VR gloves and whatnot that
Uh,
have feedback.
yeah,
And yeah, and so I think that's like super fascinating, so that they can basically a couple different companies have different ways of doing it, but yeah, force feedback so it can feel like you're holding on to something or give you
yeah,
resistance.
yeah. I remember trying one of those gloves, and they had me like take these space rocks, so
Mm-hmm.
you could grab and then squeeze harder, and then they would crack. So like
Huh.
having that resistance was like the trippiest thing. Is like your
Yeah.
hand real, but it wasn't real. It was a trip.
Yeah. Weird. Oh, okay, there you go. You froze for a second, but yeah, yeah. I don't know, and that's kind of one of the things I'm curious with VR is whether or not we're gonna keep, and I guess that extends almost to computers as well, but whether or not we're gonna keep using controllers as they are now, or if that'll evolve to something like gloves. Because I mean, the articulation we have with our hands is pretty phenomenal and hard
Yeah,
to be matched.
yeah.
But
I always too wonder about the I see it as like there's two possibilities. There's, at least in my mind, there's
mhm.
the controllers, the controller approach, like where we're actually using our body as the controller, and then there's
Yeah,
the mind approach. So there's talk of sort of being able to read certain signals sent from the mind that correlate to different movements. So like when you think I'm going to move my hand, and then you move your hand,
yeah.
you would be able to think, move my hand in game, and then you move your hand in game. And I think we're actually way closer than a lot of people think. So yeah, it'll be interesting, man, in the
Yeah, like
future.
the neural interfaces and whatnot. That's
Yeah,
yeah, that's a whole nother like area of technology where it's kind of like crazy how far we've come, but also like how complex it is. But
mm,
yeah, huh?
yeah, and the implications of it. Yeah,
Yeah, crazy.
right.
Speaking of which, are there what? So, what are some? Are there any other uses, I guess, of VR that you can think of that you're particularly interested in or excited to see evolve and grow?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously there's the entertainment side, which is always fun,
Yeah,
right? Like games, movies. But the idea of education, I think, like when I think back to school, I imagine myself sitting in a desk in this bright room, staring
yeah,
at someone talk for hours on end, and then having to remember words. Like I know some people learn like that, but I certainly cannot. And the idea of being able to experience lessons rather than just read about them,
hmm.
I think is amazing. Being able to have kids go into a classroom and be able to travel anywhere across the world at any
Yeah,
time period, I think will open up a new way to learn, and
hmm.
hopefully provide the next generation with much more knowledge and equip a new way to
Yeah,
learn.
yeah. It'd be awesome. Be
Mm.
yeah, super cool. I don't know, and yeah, and just even in that one aspect of it, I mean, there's so many ways you can go with it. I mean, there's like the physically traveling, but then seeing basically everything you're reading as a 3D object or whatnot is like talking about chemistry or whatnot. I feel like it can just stick so much better than some of, I mean, the best we have right now are pictures basically in textbooks that are who knows how old in a lot of cases, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there was a really interesting study. It was like they took a test group of, I want to say like 20 or so of kids, and then another test group, and so they gave the first test group a traditional lesson, so
mm-hmm.
the same information, and then the other test group the same information but transmitted through like virtual reality, like
Yeah,
in a nice VR. And obviously, there's a level of like, oh, excitement, like we're trying a new thing, so the kids were
yeah,
probably more receptive. But after testing them, the kids that took virtual reality tested way higher above per grade point average. So it's like, yeah, seeing this data visualization, I think, is going to be a key to one, making school more enjoyable, but also, just being able to retain information so much
oh,
easier.
totally, yeah. And the video you did on that I thought was super fascinating. If you guys listening haven't seen it already, highly recommend checking it out. But yeah, that kind of blew my mind because I figured it would be better, but I didn't realize it would be that much bigger, or the gap. It's like a like
Yeah,
32% gap or something. But
yeah,
yeah,
insane.
huh?
Wish I was born in like the next 50 years so I could just go through school with that.
Right, right. Well, we
Uh,
never have to stop learning, but that's
mm,
crazy. Where do you get
absolutely.
your ideas from for videos and stuff? What's your, I guess, creative process look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, me and my buddy Jose, we actually met in Minecraft, so we've kind of
Oh,
like kept in
nice.
contact.
Yeah,
Both creators. Um, Early on in the channel, him and I have been like collaborating throughout.
yeah.
So, every week or so, we'll just kind of jump in a call, bounce ideas back and forth, or open up a Google Doc and just share ideas.
Hmm.
That's It's really helpful to have like a second pair of eyes,
Oh, totally.
because
Yeah.
yeah, like as a single creator, you just get so focused on like one thing, and having outside input be like, kind of call you on your
Yeah.
BS, or even provide some new ideas is always great.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. That's yeah, it's a great idea. No, but it's pretty fascinating. And do you like how? I guess how far ahead do you plan a lot of these, or do your ideas just out of curiosity, or?
Yeah, so I have like sort of have like a rough idea board and
Mm-hmm.
maybe a rough schedule, but
Yeah.
I also like to kind of keep it fluid. So like if there's, say we have a video planned for the next in 2 weeks. If
Yeah.
I'm not feeling the video, like it's not working, I'll just like throw it out and be like, okay, what do I want to create? And
Yeah.
so I'll just do what I want to create, and I usually try not to work on a video for more than a week or two
Okay.
weeks because
Yeah.
I move through
Really.
so quick. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so really like just trying to record, edit, uh, and not be too attached to the product, and then just release it. That's uh,
Hmm.
that's kind of what the process that I found I enjoy the most.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the things that stood out to me the most when I first came across your channel was the quality and like the editing and whatnot. It's phenomenal. So I'm surprised that you're able to do it in that short of a time frame. I mean, it is still a good chunk of time, but
Thanks.
yeah, that's awesome.
A lot of coffee.
Yeah, yes, I hear that. I hear that. Do you think? How do you think? I guess your past and making videos for Minecraft and whatnot helped you where you are now.
Yeah, I mean it helps so much on the, at least the technical side.
Hmm.
Like I feel like the Adobe Creative Cloud is like my second home now. Like I can just
Yes.
zoom around. It's so that was really good in practice and like working the brain. But in terms of like, it's kind of given the viewpoint of just like not being too attached to anything. Like, at least for me, I can very easily get attached to a video and want it to be 100% perfect and like spend countless nights just like perfecting it. But at the end of the day, it's a YouTube video. Like, the nature of the internet and YouTube is just putting stuff out there and seeing what works. So
Oh, totally, yeah.
yeah, like working in Minecraft, I think has really kind of made me take it a little more lighthearted. You know,
Yeah.
just like, okay, I'm gonna try this video this week, and if people unsubscribe, then so be it.
Yeah, right, right. Wasn't meant to be, but
Yeah, I'm still trying to keep that thought process. It's hard.
yeah. And I gotta say, I think it's awesome also that you have all your old videos. I mean, I really wonder what the percentage is of people on YouTube whose like original video was a Minecraft video or something along those lines. Like I
Yeah,
mean, my first one was Terraria Let's Play back in the day,
nice,
but
great game.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's so good. But yeah,
yeah.
so I don't
One
know.
of my
Yeah,
oh,
no, continue. Yeah,
oh no, I was just gonna say one of my favorite things is like, yeah, like going back and kind of seeing where an artist started. Like, even YouTube or a musician or a filmmaker, like saying what was their first project and how,
yeah.
as out of 10, how terrible it was. Other
Oh,
than like
totally. But
the
like,
great.
yeah, and documenting the journey along the ways, even when it's unintended, I think can be so inspiring. Because then, as an aspiring creator or whatnot, you can look back and you can say, hey, he didn't just pop out, amazing
Yeah,
stuff right out the gate. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's
I think it was
yeah,
even the Beatles, like, one of the greatest bands. There's like the recordings of them in the studio, just like creating these terrible songs and terrible riffs until it all eventually comes together to create, Hey Jude or something. So,
yeah, yeah. What made you want to do that first Minecraft video? Like, yeah.
honestly, I just wanted to be famous.
Hey, I mean that's
Hopefully selfish,
legit.
yeah, there too. Yeah, I just wanted to, have a huge audience and play games. And I think it was until I kind of let that go, like not doing it to become famous or not doing it for money, that
Yeah.
I actually then started to enjoy creating. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's such a key aspect of it too, and that you really have to enjoy what you're doing. Otherwise, I mean, it can become such a slog, and I feel like that can lead to burnout as well and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything you do to try and stave off that, like burnout, I guess,
Yeah, for sure. Um,
or keep an eye on it?
yeah, I try to actually like run and work out every day, and
Yeah,
like just completely unplug from any electronics, other than like music. But like, yeah, whenever I'm experiencing writer's block, just like go on a run and, and take in the environment.
yeah,
So that's actually really helped. Uh, yeah,
yeah. It's super solid. I've actually taken to doing similar, just physical activity and running and whatnot. It can be so.
yeah,
I don't, and I always found it funny because it's one of those things that like you never really realize how much of an impact that can have on you until you're done and you're back, and it's yeah, feeling of
yeah.
refreshed. But
It's almost like like a completely different mind state. Like, before a run, you can start to feel like negative feelings, and then after, it's just like, oh, okay, everything's
yeah,
okay. It just sort of creates like this this calm zen. I feel like
yeah,
on the good days. And
yeah,
other
yeah.
times it just sucks.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. I think it's such an important thing that I think often gets overlooked, and also the fact that being in a sedentary lifestyle, I guess, which when your main work revolves around a computer, can be a little detrimental to your health, or so I've been told, so I've heard.
yeah, Yeah, naturally.
But yeah, that's crazy. And then when it comes to like making your content, I mean, I noticed just recently you had a video that went a little viral, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But for those of you who haven't heard, or those of you who are listening, that would be the VR in a week that you spent. What was that like, living
Yeah, man.
in VR for a week?
It was a trip, man. It was more than anything. I think it was just kind of like a mental a mental exercise. Like
Yeah.
me and husband, like we always shared the idea. So when I shared that idea, at the bottom
Yeah.
I had this little note. It's like, this idea excites me, but it also scares me.
Yeah. Okay, where did
It's just
that come from? Like that idea?
yeah. I was browsing YouTube and I saw a guy that had done said I did 24 hours in VR and I lost touch of reality or something.
Hmm.
It's kind of like a joke video. It's pretty funny and so I kind of wanted to just like see if I could do 168 hours, not just for oh I did 168
Yeah.
hours. Look at me, more of like a exploration into the unknown. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like this huge just mental thing, and is really cool to kind of see other people relate to it.
Yeah, man. Cause like I've done I stream on Twitch and whatnot, and I've run the 24-hour gauntlet,
Yeah.
and just being live for that long, like it really, I feel like, kind of starts to affect a little bit of your mindset, but it can also be really draining. I feel like. Did you experience any of that, or like just
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, 100%, man. Like the first day, it was just like being watched by people,
yeah,
and not only being watched but scrutinized. Like
yeah,
everything you do, they see, and like I really had to like have some self control and not check my viewer count, not check the chat 24/7, because that
yeah,
was what it crazy. Um, yeah, but yeah, it's draining, man. It's like I was listening to a podcast and they're talking about like how it's almost like this new form of loneliness at times. You know,
hmm,
at times it's amazing streaming, but it's also in its essence you're sitting alone talking to people that aren't actually there.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it kind of creates this weird idea of just like being on stage with no one else for a while.
yeah,
On the other, adversely, it's a blast sometimes. You know,
yeah.
playing games and having people actually interact with you. It's great.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a trip, and I mean, one of the things that I found interesting was, I mean, it kind of harkens back to the days of Justin.tv where he was broadcasting his life. But I heard in a podcast a while back with, I think it was with iJustine, because I guess she was the
Uh,
second person to, I mean, technically be on Twitch, but she basically took over Justin's role, and so she was
really?
broadcasting and streaming 24/7 for a while. But it was pretty interesting in the podcast because then she went on to talk about how her mental state was different and how that awareness and that alertness of, okay, every single action that I do is being witnessed right now. So, and that you basically just are hyper aware of yourself 24/7, and
Yeah.
like how that can kind of affect your mental state a little bit, or it's kind of a interesting thing that I never really thought about. But
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, because it's such a new thing. Like I think back to
yeah, that was on
people.
the I Just Seen podcast. I believe it was the Create Unknown who did that,
Okay,
for
okay,
listeners
I'll
as
check
well.
that out.
Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's such a new concept being watched. I feel like, other than
yeah,
like when TV came out and they had studios, but like 50 years ago, 100 years ago, it's like, oh, you can now have people peer into your house. That's crazy.
yeah, yeah. Well, and that, and just the fact that how interconnected we are as a global society and whatnot. I was just thinking a couple days ago, like, what would a World War II look like if, I could, would I still be able to jump in and play a game with German people? Like, What if I went on the EU servers? What would that have been like? Because we've never really experienced that where we've been. I don't, at least I can't think of one where we've been at war with a country that has a large online presence, or at least
Yeah, that's a
yeah, yeah, or at least one that civilians are part of and whatnot. But
yeah, yeah, because I can only think of like North Korea, but they don't have internet, like we don't interact with them. So that's
yeah,
a really interesting thought. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's just like, and I can almost like hear the just. I can almost imagine getting into a lobby with a bunch of people on the other side, and then finding out, and everybody's slinging insults or whatnot. But dude, like,
So
I don't
basically
know.
a Fortnite lobby.
Yeah. Oh man, can't even imagine that. No, but like, and then I was thinking, on so many fronts, like basically everyone doing things in the online space, are anyone trying to do something different is a pioneer. I don't know. It's a weird thing to say, but everything new that's attempted is at least new for the first time. And with live streaming, this is the first time that now basically anybody can broadcast themselves to everyone, and it's not going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, or you don't need a huge studio or anything. It kind of opens the gates a little bit, and it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be alive in.
Yeah, sure.
But
I
yeah,
always I always wonder if in the future there'll be obviously like the game live streaming, right? But
mm-hmm.
and I honestly think that in the future we'll all be wearing like glasses to replace
Yeah,
smartphones, right? Like augmented reality glasses. So I wonder if there will be sort of this new celebrity renaissance that'll happen where it's just people that live stream their life 24/7 with the glasses that anyone
yeah,
could then jump into and experience like a 360 view of their life, like jumping into this person's POV whenever they want.
huh? Yeah,
I think, yeah,
yeah, that's a
that's just a
crazy thought.
yeah,
Huh? Yeah, that would be something. No, it'd be yeah. It's really trippy, especially as like nowadays we're moving farther and farther from that like the classic movie star celebrity who comes out when a movie is released and then they disappear into the ether or Paris or wherever. But
yeah. Everyone's just like it's almost more connected now. Like you can peer into the life of whatever celebrity it be,
yeah,
whereas like you mentioned, they just disappear before. Now
yeah.
they're always there.
And then it was actually funny. I was again a couple weeks ago. It occurred to me as I was watching someone like live stream that wait a second, as VR takes off, we're not really gonna have much in terms of the webcam to live streamer approach. Like that's gonna die because the person's gonna be wearing a headset and you won't be able to see their reactions.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I wonder
so
how that'll be.
yeah, like I was wondering the same thing. Like maybe we'll get VR headsets that don't. I guess they have to block your vision basically, unless it's like
Yeah,
glasses. But
I always like the Ready Player One approach. In the book, he was talking about. Have you ever
yeah, yeah,
seen?
read the book back in the
Yeah,
day.
you
I
know that
think I
book.
got it from a loot crate, but
Oh,
wait, yeah, it was actually like right after the book came out too, and it's just like, oh, cool, all right.
so you're one of the early readers. That's rad.
I'm proud to say for at least that,
Bring
yeah,
it down, yeah. But there's a scene where I think Parzival is talking about Sierra's stream,
hmm
and that he always watched the girl's stream, and like I think it was that she had like a POV cam of her avatar in game
hmm
when playing games. So I wonder if it'll be like that, where like we see the avatar of these streamers,
yeah,
and they'll be playing virtual world.
that's an interesting thought because we're getting more and more games. One of the games that I play a lot of is Star Citizen which I don't know if you've heard about it, but uh, they introduce a feature that they call FOIP, which is basically it uses your webcam to track your facial features, and it can map that onto your character's face. So if you're talking or whatnot, then your character's face moves, his mouth moves, his eyes move, and whatnot.
That's
And
dope.
so, and it, I mean, it's pretty early on, but it is pretty impressive, like how well it works. And you can have the program will be up on your computer too, and so you can actually see all the points that it's tracking on live, kind of like the classic
Oh,
motion capture. But that's cool. And then
that's cool.
yeah, I've always kind of wondered whether or not maybe we'll have VR sets with cameras internally that'll be able to track your eyes. I feel like I might have seen something recently where they mentioned they had a headset capable of doing something similar, but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have to send you the link if I can. But Oculus, I think just last week, sort of showed this clip from their like developer labs where
Mm-hmm.
they're almost doing that, where they're tracking the eyes, and then
Yes.
it
Yeah.
might have been the muscles then emulating what they think the mouth would look like, and it was like insanely realistic. So it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Cause that's always been one of the tricky parts with headsets is the fact that we have that dead zone in our vision where in our peripherals where things are kind of blurry. But if you're wearing a headset, you can flick your eyes and see clearly at the top of your vision, which you can never do in reality. And so
Yeah,
I guess if you have eye tracking via headset, that means that it would be able to adjust your vision or your character's vision based off of where your eyes are looking inside the headset itself.
hmm,
And I guess that
that
would
is,
contribute majorly to like the realism or whatnot.
yeah, like selecting menus and then like adjusting the blurriness too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like it, like when you look at something close or far, like the depth perception. I think that's gonna be insane with eye tracking.
Huh. Yeah, that's crazy. And then oh yeah, and then circling way back around, but I was gonna ask you about the weekend VR. Did you have any idea that that would take off as large as it did?
No, not at all. I was My highest hope was like, okay, a million. I was hoping to break 1 million views after
Yeah,
like 6 months. Um,
yeah,
and then yeah, just climbing and stuff. It was cool.
yeah. And it was funny because I subscribed to your channel just before. I think one of your videos got to like the front page of Reddit, maybe. Or
Okay.
it was something like that, or at least I saw it. Pretty sure I saw it on Reddit, and so I subscribed, and I was like, "Wow, how does this guy and how do they not have more subs?" And then I saw the Weekend VR, and I think that came out at like super pretty late my time, like 10 p.m. or something. I'm in Switzerland, also listeners who
All right.
might not know, but yeah, and I remember seeing that, and it was like it was pretty low, like I don't know, maybe there's like 16,000 views or 30,000. Like it was pretty big, but not like crazy. But I remember thinking like, all right, this is gonna go places. But yeah, that's
Yeah, it's a trip.
that's awesome. Is it? Do you have any or are there any videos that you're super proud of that maybe haven't blown up as much as you'd like? Cause I feel like that's always one of the classic artist problems or creator problems is the songs or things you make aren't always, given the widespread recognition that maps to how you feel.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I've tried to just like not really care about views, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if a video if a video reaches over 1,000 views, then I'm like, all right, cool. A
yeah,
thousand people. That's crazy. Like imagining 1,000 people in a room clicking on the video, like that's fine by me. But it
yeah.
is interesting to kind of see like some, just out of pure interest, like some topics, some videos just don't do well as others. Where
Mm.
sometimes I'll be editing a video and think, oh, this one's going to do great, and then
Yeah.
maybe it doesn't perform as well, or I'll be editing another video and be like, oh, this is the worst thing I've ever put out, and then people love it. It's like I've
Yeah.
given up hope trying to
Right,
figure
the
out
classic.
the internet.
And then when you throw in like the algorithm, in this case the YouTube algorithm, where it's like it seemed like the week in VR, it literally just showed it to everybody, like on everybody's sidebar.
Yeah,
But then
people
I
got
feel like
sick.
it's one of those, yeah, sorry. I was gonna say,
Oh
I
no,
feel like it's one of those situations where it's like, yeah, actually, you did good. You did a good job, algorithm. This is something that has pretty widespread appeal. I can't think of anyone who wouldn't want to, see, okay, what is that like? What is a week in VR like?
yeah, it was nice. I mean, it was nice to kind of like work on a project, like pour the heart into it, and then somehow the YouTube gods, I guess, shined upon it. So
Yeah.
it was fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. But yeah, what was and then I'm just curious about like also the experience, but because I was totally expecting you to come out of it with eye pain or something like that. Because I imagine staring at a monitor even for too long, I get some eye strain out of it. But
Yeah,
I don't know. Were there any other surprises that, yeah, you found, or things that surprised you rather?
yeah. I was really surprised I didn't get too much eye strain. That was like one of the main worries by myself and friends and family. Um, in terms of like, I was surprised about the sense of community I felt on there.
Hmm.
Like I was pretty worried about being like isolated too much. Like I am a pretty like introverted guy when I'm working, and
Yeah.
so I'm a little worried of just like being bored and not talking to anyone and kind of going a little crazy. But the community I found online through the stream and just through the VR experiences themselves was like really really nice. It was one of the
Hmm.
highlights of the trip. So
Yeah.
I was surprised that I was more social in VR than I am usually outside.
Yeah, totally. And I wonder if that's, or do you think any of that has to do with like it's not even like it's partial anonymity, I guess a little bit, but yeah, I don't know, because it seems like, yeah, yeah. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was watching a video a couple weeks ago of like this. I think she was from the 90s. She
Mm-hmm.
was like an early developer, a web developer, and she created sort of a community website in the 90s of people that almost like a chat room, right? And
Mm-hmm.
she was talking about how people connect and share so much easier online, almost like a direct mirror of what we're experiencing now with virtual reality.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's like that same effect. I can't put my finger on it. I think it has partly to do with an anonymity.
Yeah,
How do you
right.
pronounce
It's
that?
a weird word.
Anonymity. Anemone. But there's also this level of like, yeah, sharing, talking to someone, but seeing their head movement and seeing their hand movement
Yeah.
is different than talking to them in like an MMO or chat room or even video calling. Um, so it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally, yeah, I can see that. It's,
Mm.
it's crazy. Did you notice anything, uh, I guess, did you notice any places where in VR and whatnot, like more social spaces or whatnot, do you notice anything interesting culturally wise, like with people from different cultures, countries, like different games maybe had larger groups of people from one culture, I suppose?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's really interesting is like I don't know how long this will last, but like I feel like VR chat and this frontier of VR is one of the
Hmm.
few technologies that isn't censored in say like China,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean like don't quote me on that. They might
Yeah.
not be, but whenever I jump into VR chat, sometimes depending on the time of the day, you can enter these worlds and it's just full of people
Hmm.
speaking different languages, and it's like
Yeah.
It's really crazy to be able to communicate with these people, stand in the same room essentially with them in the
Yeah.
virtual world, um, and really share ideas. Whereas like with our social media, like Twitter, Facebook,
Hmm.
um, China has their own platforms
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
So it's like this new merging that we're seeing.
Huh. Yeah, that is fascinating, and I mean that's an interesting thought. Also, is with our social medias, the fact that it's not really live, uh, with pretty much everything aside from maybe Twitch or whatnot. But even then, you have a different problem. But with our social medias right now, we're not getting exposed to anyone in a different country or different regions, anyone that's not directly interested in what, say, my interests are. Like if I'm on Instagram, I might get one follower, a couple followers, but I'm not really going to interact with someone who speaks Russian. There's nothing prompting me to go out of the way. But in gaming, I've found that that's kind of, well, it's different a little bit. And if you, I mean, most people have noticed this, if you spend too much time at night or if you just stay up really late, you'll get a whole different crowd. I was from the West Coast, and so I found if I played like Overwatch, for example, and I was the later at night I played, the more Korean people we'd get. So I always found that fascinating. But then it brings into VR, which adds a whole nother element, I think. And
Yeah,
things like VR chat, where it's just a large social space with so many different worlds.
yeah. It's almost like I always like to think of it as like tribes, like
Mm.
tribalism early on when we were, in the fields of Africa or wherever. You had like specific groups of people, but now it's like, okay, we have the worlds, and then we have this other layer of the world, the digital world, where
Yeah.
we can all kind of find different tribes from people across the world that are physically thousands of miles apart, but digitally right next to each other. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. It's yeah, it's crazy.
Mm.
And then with the channel, and I'm always curious because I feel like we as individuals, things that I guess we as people are made up of so many different experiences and whatnot, and there's so many things that we'll experience uniquely that no one else would normally get the chance to. But I was wondering if there were any like books or channels, articles, podcasts. I guess each of those could be its own subject, but let's start with books. Were there any books that really influenced you in how you view the world, how you approach, yeah, VR, and even the
Yeah,
YouTube channel itself?
yeah. So I've been chewing away at this book called Understanding Media by Marshall McLuhan.
Okay.
And he was a great thinker, sort of in the age of, I want to say, I hesitate to say the hippie age of the
Yeah.
60s,
Oh no,
but
I gotcha. Yeah.
yeah, but he wasn't really in the whole psychedelic scene, but he was a great thinker on kind of predicting how different forms of media affect us and how almost like, yeah, he gives the example of like cool media and hot media. So
Hmm.
cool media is like books and stuff that you're engaged with, that's you almost have to have a certain amount of attention to engage with that certain media.
Hmm.
And then hot media is like films where it's beaming stuff to you, it's
Yeah.
sending flash, sending music to you, and like those two comparisons has really kind of helped me shape this new transitional state between digital windows and immersive technology that we find ourselves in. So
Hmm.
that's I'm only a couple chapters into the book. It's like super dense.
Yeah.
It's like a
That
really
sounds
like
fascinating, though.
yeah, it's a really good book.
Huh.
What
What was
about
the
you?
name of it again?
Oh, it's Understanding Media by
Okay.
Marshall McLuhan.
I will definitely have to check it out. And then, were there any other books that I don't know you've read in the past or whatnot that have affected you?
Yeah, The Call of the Wild completely different book. It's not related to
Yeah.
technology or anything. Yeah, if I was an animal, I always like to think I would be like a wolf or like a dog or something. So
Yeah.
the way uh the way that story is written is just brilliant. It's sort of like in the mind of the dog itself. And
Hmm.
I love that time period. So that's one of
Ah,
my
it's so good. Yeah. Man, I haven't. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I think I read the illustrated classics version of it way back in the day. If you remember that, those book
great.
series. But
Yeah, Jack London's a great author. What about you? You have any recommendations or anything?
ooh, oh, all right, turning the table. I like it. No, um,
No, I love bookmark recommendations.
yeah, yeah. Let me think about that for a second, because I'm always fascinated by just different perspectives, and I don't know. I feel like there's so much one can learn and gain, and that'll just give you, yeah, just different perspective on life or things. One book that I often recommend to people who are interested in doing any creative endeavor or whatnot or artistic endeavor is a book called Crush It. It's by this guy Gary Vaynerchuk, who you may or may not know, but he's a fairly well known figure, but super fascinating, and it's about basically, I guess you could say, digital marketing, or it's about utilizing social media and the digital era that we live in right now to further your creative endeavor. But more so than that, I feel like it's the biggest point that it tries to drive home, and pretty successfully, I feel like, is that anybody interested in doing anything can make a living doing it. So any creative endeavor, any really anything at all, uh, in this interconnected world, you can find a fan base, or you can find a group of people who are also interested in that and who can help you. And maybe it won't be easy, and that's not to say you'll be a millionaire, but if you truly love it and love what you're doing, then this is the greatest time to be alive for, yeah, creatives.
Hmm.
And it had a lot of really good test cases, and it was super fascinating. And then there's also an essay called "A Thousand True Fans" by Kevin Kelly, the co-founder of Wired Magazine, that is an amazing read and kind of talks about a little bit of that and distills the idea that if you want to do something creative, all you need are 1,000 true fans. And by true fans, it kind of mentions, say, if you had a book signing, these are the people who would drive, an hour or several hours to go there, or yeah, things along those lines. But basically, it's like someone who would be willing to pay $100 a month towards a project of yours, or it's like $8.50, or sorry, $100 a year. It's like $8.50 a month or so. But while 1,000 is big, that's a whole lot smaller than like the million or millions that most people think of when, say, even if someone wanted to have a YouTube channel, it's often, okay, I need 10 million fans and I got to do this and all this stuff. But it's like, no, if you really connect with people and you really have a passion for something, then it's possible.
Hmm.
Which super fascinating read. And it's
Yeah.
it's really short. It's an online essay. Highly recommended.
Yeah, there's something about like breaking up these these concepts into like short digestible things like you
Yeah.
mentioned, like it's so easy to get caught up like, oh, I need this number of people or this number of subscribers or views, but like yeah, it's almost a comfort to just be like, no, just take a step back, like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
It's all you need, and then you can work out from there. So I'll definitely have to check that out. That
Yeah.
sounds great.
Yeah. And then one of the ideas I loved along those lines of with the 1,000 true fans is basically if you look at the population of the world, and you'll think someone could think, oh, my thing is it's too unique, or there's not enough people, but it's like literally if 1 in a million people like whatever you're doing, then that's more than enough.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I think those are pretty good odds. I'll take
Yeah.
those.
It's
But
so hard to remind oneself of that, I feel like.
yeah,
Because, like, even like streaming, like, I get so caught up in the numbers at times, or it's like, oh, I'll check it, like, oh, did I just do that and then
yeah,
lost 10 viewers? What did I do wrong? But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, if one person watched the stream and they'll come back,
yeah,
or they enjoyed it, then it's like, okay, cool. Thumbs up. I can't.
yeah, yeah, totally. And it's
That's
like, and that's something that I feel like gets tricky. I almost wish there was an app that could, that would be able to visualize those numbers into, like a representation. Because it's like, if you've got 5 people or 10 people in front of you watching a thing that you're doing, those are individual people. That's awesome. If it's just
yeah,
one person, I mean, that's awesome.
yeah.
So
Like sharing moments with each other.
yeah, yeah. So it's awesome. What about? Is there any like TV shows or movies that have really inspired you or moved you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I grew up on Lord of the Rings,
Yeah,
best, and Peter Jackson,
yeah,
super inspiring to hear. Yeah, that actually really, I think, out of any media, I think that shaped both my worldview and just the type of media I like.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's something else. I mean, as I said a little earlier, but I literally just watched the extended editions. I think it was last weekend, and it's so good. I mean, for the I don't know how many times, but umpteenth time, but it's so good.
They hold up so well, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Like just
And I'm waiting like a game or especially like a VR game that's able to capture that kind of world building, that epic scale.
that would be killer, man. I'd be in that game way too.
Yeah.
Too
Right. Yeah. And then, is there anything that you practice, or are there any practices that you do that you feel help you just as a creator, maybe outside of VR or whatnot? I mean, you said earlier you do running and stuff, but like I'm wondering,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, over the past couple of years, I've taken up meditation. So
yeah, yeah,
using, yeah, I started on like a Headspace app.
yep, great
Um,
app.
just like, yeah, get used to like clearing the mind. But
Hmm.
I would say almost now most ideas or how I move forward with the channel now comes from meditation, like clearing the mind and seeing what
Yeah,
comes. Uh, so that's one of the most helpful things I think in the creator tool belt is making sure the mind is stable.
yeah, yeah, and I find that to be such a fascinating space as well, because it's like if you're in your little bubble, I guess, as a person, and the people you don't talk to or you talk to don't practice it, meditation in this case, then it's often hard to get a scale of how big something is. Or it's been interesting to me because I also meditate, and it's been a more recent, I mean, practice for me in the last year or so. But part of what inspired me to do it is if you take a look at like a, a lot of people do it across the entire spectrum, and the amount of people in like business leaders or whatnot who meditate, and people who you think, okay, they can't spare 10 minutes to do anything, but it's not that much time, and the effect it can have on a person is incredible. But
Yeah,
I'm excited as it continues to get, I guess, destigmatized a little bit, uh, and because I mean the scientific benefits are pretty prevalent and available for reading, and
mm,
and yeah, and that was actually one of the things that I thought was really interesting that I'd never thought about was when in your week in VR video, you showcase a little bit that of doing meditation in a VR space, and that there are people in other parts of the world there. I hadn't even occurred to me that like something like that would be possible or would exist. But it's like, okay, I can't wait to try that out. But
Yeah, it's really nice. It's because meditation is a very like personal experience, you know, like
yeah,
you're going with that, but doing it in a group setting, you almost doing it in a group setting in real life, like you feel connected with everyone, but you get that same effect in VR as well. So
yeah,
it's really cool. Yeah,
huh, yeah.
we gotta we gotta jump in and
Oh yes, definitely,
go
definitely.
for
Yeah, that's cool. All right, well, I think yeah, that's about all I can think of in terms of questions and whatnot.
Awesome,
But
man.
I'd love it if you could, share a little bit about plans for the future, thoughts, or and the channel as well. Where can people find you?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
closing
So you
thoughts
can
as
head
well.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You can find us at a DISR period PT, like disrupt without the U
Yeah.
in your URL. So that has everything, all the links. But yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's been really nice to kind of chat about some of the deeper stuff rather than just
Yeah. Oh,
videos and
totally,
stuff.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
thanks, man.
I'm more than happy. Thank you for coming on. It was awesome.
Yeah,
And
absolutely, man.
yeah. Oh, and where can people find you on social medias and whatnot, and Disrupt? Are you on
Yeah,
everything?
yeah. So I'm at Jak Wilmot, JAKWILMOT, and then on Disrupts, it's like Disrupt Tweet and Disrupt on Facebook and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can find it on YouTube as well on the videos. If you haven't already, guys, subscribe, like, comment, that whole thing. But yeah,
Appreciate it.
thanks again for coming on.